What's going on, guys? Welcome to another opposition preview to look ahead to the Arsenal game on Thursday night. For this episode, I'm joined by Tom from the Gooner Talk TV. Thank you for joining me, Tom. And Arsenal. I mean, where do we start with Arsenal? There's always something going on every single year. And this year has been interesting as well with you guys. You started the season off pretty poor. And about a month ago, we were talking about you guys. I know it was probably trolling, but we're talking about Arsenal potentially getting relegated. But recently, you've kicked on and you've got results against Chelsea, recently against Newcastle as well. So what's actually changed over the last couple of weeks, and how would you sum up your season so far?
To sum up the season, it's obviously been a roller coaster. It's probably the best way to describe it, to be honest. More one that just goes down and then a lot further down and then up towards the end. It's pretty much how it's been. But I mean, the reason as to why is the young kids coming back. There's been a turning form of Lacazette as well, which has been a big help. But Emile Smith-Rowe's arrival, of course, I think we won one game in 10 matches ahead of the match against Chelsea. We started with Emile Smith-Rowe and Gabriel Martinelli in that game, and they were both unbelievably good. Alexander Lacazette, as I mentioned already, was great as well. And it seems like without them, we could be back to a scenario where we were at the start of the season. It is just that injection of youth and energy and creativity from those guys that's got us to where we are now.
Yeah, how would you describe Arteta as a manager? I've seen comments suggesting that he's a bit stubborn. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a stubborn. I mean, for the amount of time he's played Willian, it just proved that he's a stubborn manager. But I think that he's obviously an inexperienced coach. It's his first main job that he's had. He took that over in December of last year. Sorry, not last year. We're in 2021 now. In December of 2019, he started. So he's still incredibly inexperienced. And now as a manager, because he was actually joined as head coach and he was promoted to manager in the summer of 2020, has now got all these other responsibilities. If you think Arsenal's last manager was Arsene Wenger, Unai Emery came in as a head coach, never got that role as a manager. And now Arteta, after just 6 months in a job, has got to do everything else, not just coaching, but the transfers, recruitment, academy, stuff like that. It's an insane amount of work for a manager that's still very, very young.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it. Well, you did see it last week. I don't know why I'm asking you this. Because we had a conversation beforehand. I don't know why I said that. But Zaha came out last week on Jamie Carragher's podcast, and he said how he had conversations with Emery and how he wanted to join Arsenal. As Palace fans, we knew that already, that he wanted to go and move on to a bigger club like Arsenal. But how do you feel about them comments? Like, be honest here. Of course, not every Arsenal fan rates Zaha, even though about 80% of them are under his tweets every single time he posts them.
Yeah.
But how do you feel that Arsenal chose Pepe over Zaha? Are you upset about it? Or are you just saying, you know what, Pepe in the long term will prove a success anyways?
I'm not upset about it because I understand why we did. Crystal Palace, as I'm sure you'll be aware, and your listeners too, is that they wanted effectively £100 million or something close to that, and it wasn't able to be paid in instalments either, which was just not financially possible for Arsenal to do. Pepe from Lille was a situation where you paid £72 million, but in the first summer that we signed him, we only paid around £25 million of that. It was able to be done in instalments. So financially, it suited Arsenal much, much better. And I don't think the Zaha deal would have even been possible. So it wasn't listening to his comments on the Jamie Carragher podcast about how he said that he spoke with Emery. Emery said he wanted him. And then he said that the club chose Pepe. I don't think that's necessarily spot on. I think the club kind of ended up with Pepe because they weren't able to get Zaha. Now, I disagree with the Arsenal fans that don't particularly rate Zaha. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's someone that I think he's unlucky that the Man United move happened when it did. I think it happened kind of too soon in his career. He probably should have stayed at Palace for a couple more years and then maybe moved on. But since coming back, it's not like he's let that experience hurt him in any way. He's gone on, pushed on and pushed you guys not only to survival, but at times further up the table as well, which is big, obviously.
Yeah. And the thing with the United transfer was that he saw Alex Ferguson signed him. And then when you went there, it was David Moyes. So it was a massive change in manager qualities in the first. Yeah. Well, loads of. I think the difference was there. I mean, it was a massive difference for Zaha. But I guess West Ham are doing fine this year, so maybe Zaha wouldn't mind going West Ham. Because right now at Palace, it's a bit mediocre when looking at Palace play week in, week out. I mean, as Palace fans, I don't really expect us to go and win week in, week out. But I mean, I feel bad for some of the players because we just don't like changing about, and our football's so boring as well. But you know, as you've seen it with you guys, I guess time will only tell on how good we are when we get a new manager in. But I want to quickly talk about some of your players. Like Saka, I think is a brilliant talent for you guys. And I'm just thinking, how on earth do we stop this guy? Only 19 years old, and he's highly rated because he's been not just the only one of the players that's been, carrying you guys so far this season.
Yeah, he's along with Smith Rowe, as we mentioned earlier. He has been the guy that looks like he'd be the spark during our dour run at the beginning of the season. Amazingly creative player, so confident for a player of just 19 years of age. Takes on players with absolute ease, beats them, puts really fantastic balls with his right and left foot into the box as well. And he's composed when it comes into those final moments. He's not a youngster that gets into those really big situations and panics and makes the wrong decision. Typically, as we saw with the goal against Brighton when he set up Lacazette, those moments he's crucial and he's clinical. He knows what the type of pass to make. He could have put a ball to the back edge of the box against Brighton, but he saw the run of Lacazette, cut the ball low and back to him, and he finished expertly. But he is just one of those. And the thing is, with Arsenal right now, he's not the only one. We've got a lot of young players coming through that people haven't even seen yet in the academy as well, that have got a couple of minutes in the Europa League. We are going to lose a couple of them, like following Balogun. He's got 6 months left on his deal and he's not going to re-sign. But there is a lot of hope coming through Arsenal's academy, and Saka and Smith Rowe and Martinelli are certainly parts of that for sure.
Yeah, well, Martinelli's injured going into this game, I believe, unless he's got an injury. So Saka, what's his weakness then? How do Palace go ahead and try to stop Saka? Is it going and pushing the ball onto his weak foot? What is it?
It's a good question. It depends where obviously he plays. He can play in 3 roles for us. He can play as either a right winger or a left winger, or as a left wing back if we need him to. It depends on where he plays. If he's playing on the right, obviously show him onto his right foot. It's still good, still a good right foot, but it's a lot less devastating than his left. So you want to push him towards the byline as much as possible to stop him from cutting back inside. But stopping his crosses is probably the big thing. If you close him down, get tight to him, that might make it more difficult. But in the reasons why kind of Nicola Pepe has struggled is because he hasn't worked well in tight spaces. And that's been the difference between him and the success of Saka, is Saka has worked really well in these tight spaces, getting out of danger, getting round players, using his skill to beat a man. He's a difficult man to stop, and I think that the only way to do so is by stopping that service that you can put into the box by getting close to him and blocking those crosses.
Is there any players that are maybe under the radar that many non-Arsenal fans don't know about who has performing well? I've got one player in my head. I don't know if you're going to mention him, but I suspect not many non-Arsenal fans will be talking about him being one of your star players. But is there anyone who you would pick out going into this game?
I'm not sure about too many kind of unknowns, because as you mentioned about Arteta's stubbornness, he has picked a lot of the same players. I think you shouldn't sleep on Lacazette because he had a poor start to the season, but the last 3 games he's been unbelievably good. And I'm not saying obviously he's one that goes under the radar and everyone pretty much knows who he is. Yeah. But in terms of his form, it's something that you shouldn't sleep on and should be a little bit concerned about. Granit Xhaka as well as a player that's a little bit enigmatic. He can have an absolute howler of a game and kick someone in the teeth and get sent off, or he can have an absolute stormer like he has in the last 4 games that he's played. So, and I remember being at Selhurst Park when he scored that mad free kick against you guys as well, from a stupidly tight angle. So he can have a great game. But I mean, if you're looking at kind of young players, Smith Rowe is the new one on the scene that's obviously burst onto the scene of his creativity. But Tierney as well in the left back position has been fantastic. So he's arguably he's been the best player this season by probably, along with Saka, a distance.
But that's the thing. Of course, if you watch football and if you watch Arsenal, you would understand it. But let's say you wasn't watching Arsenal, you would think of the likes of Aubameyang and Lacazette. But in fact, Tierney, for you guys, the way that he's been playing at that left-back position and how much of an influence he's had going forward from them areas, I think he's been brilliant. And the problem is, I'm just thinking, how on earth do Palace stop? Because against West Brom, he had that shot and that run, and that it was brilliant. And he had I think it was with his right foot that he had the shot at the end. So what do we do to stop Tierney?
Tierney,
has anyone stopped him?
You can stop him. Obviously, his right foot, even though he scored that goal against West Brom, which was an unbelievably good right-footed goal, his crossing with his right foot isn't that great. So you should show him inside where possible. What Arsenal often do with either Xhaka usually plays the ball in behind. If you saw the goal that we scored against Newcastle, the second one, Xhaka plays this incisive pass through to Tierney, who then sets up Aubameyang for the goal. Those types of passes are what need to be stopped. Is actually stopping the ball getting to Tierney in those offensive positions in the first place. Once he's got the ball, it's more difficult. So the best way to kind of stop him is by stopping the ball reaching him in the first place and identifying the runs that he makes. Plus, when he is caught upfield, if you can hit us on the counter in that vacant space on the left-hand side, if Xhaka is not protecting that space, that's somewhere which Arsenal can be hit in a vulnerable area, because it'll either be Marie or Gabriel that plays as well on Thursday. So it'd be interesting to see which one he picks.
Looking at this Palace side, is there anyone that you fear coming up against? I know you would probably mention Zaha, but it's interesting to hear your perspectives, because I feel like I don't think anyone has really performed apart from one player who I don't know if you'll mention.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the player you're thinking of is one of two names that come to mind when you say that. Either one is Eze, or Jeffrey Schlupp being the other one. Like every time I've watched Palace, and obviously now I'm writing full time, and I cover quite a few of the Palace games to write about. The guy that always the commentator saying his name over and over again is Jeffrey Schlupp. He gets on the ball all the time when he plays, and you find a way, even more than Zaha, weirdly. He seems to get the ball more than Zaha. And I thought he's been quite good this season. Did he score? Was it him who scored against Spurs earlier in the season?
He did. He did, but now he's out injured.
Oh, is he out injured? Okay, so
exactly. That's what I'm saying. You guys are on form, and he's out injured. But
so Eze is the one,
Yeah, Eze, I feel like people are realizing his talent now, but the fact that he's come from QPR and just settled in the Premier League just like that, I feel like in the future, I know I've put a lot of pressure on him, and Palace fans are putting a lot of pressure on this guy, but I feel like he can actually deliver and be one of the best attacking players in the Premier League going forward in the future. Still a long way to go, but his game and his just talent, he's naturally gifted. But in terms of tactics, how do you think Palace should approach this game in order to get a result? Do you think sitting back and letting you guys come at us and you guys trying to break us down is the best approach for Palace?
No, but it's not, because Arsenal now with Smith Rowe and with the turn of form of Lacazette have found kind of a way to break down these teams that do sit back. At the start of the season, teams were playing low blocks and it was working every single week. Like you look at Leicester, they came to the Emirates and they played with no striker. Jamie Vardy was on the bench and Harvey Barnes started in a striking role of like a false nine, I suppose. They just sat back, absorbed pressure all game because Arsenal couldn't score. They couldn't create chances. And then they hit us at the end when Jamie Vardy did come on and scored. So you could play a low block. I don't think it's the right way to go. I think you should, yes, to an extent, absorb pressure and hit Arsenal on the break where possible, with Zaha being such a crucial player for you guys. But a key thing is going to be getting balls into the box. I don't know who you're going to be starting up top, whether it will be Benteke or who's your other striker that you've got, Batshuayi?
Zaha starts up top this season.
Right.
So it'll be Zaha, and I believe Benteke should be back fit. He had a dead leg against Sheffield United.
Yeah.
But he's out at the Wolves game, so he should be back for this game, hopefully.
So it's going to be interesting to kind of tactically how you approach it and the ways in which you attack Arsenal. If you're playing with Zaha as a central player, weirdly, I think he'd be less effective, because Arsenal centrally are a lot stronger, and we're meant to have Thomas Partey back for this game as well, which is massive for us, of course. In my view, he's our best player. So
this is not looking good. I'll be honest, John. It's not looking good for Palace. You're on form.
Which is mad you'd say that, because if we'd have had this conversation 4 weeks ago, I reckon it would have been a very, very different kind of view, because Arsenal have been so up and down and so fluctuating in form. But if Zaha was playing out wide and you were playing a counter-attacking style, and say Bellerin is in an advanced position and he gets caught, Rob Holding one-on-one with a player, which is Zaha, one of his best attributes, of course, as you know, when he's one-on-one with the player, can take players on really well. If he's one-on-one with Rob Holding, he will beat the man, and he will beat him, and that'll be a really good opportunity to score. So I feel that Zaha, if possible, should be played in a wide area to get the best from him in this game. Because centrally, when we've got Gabriel back now from his COVID isolation, alongside Rob, who has been good, but when he's isolated one-on-one against a winger, that's when we're kind of at our weakest, for sure.
Yeah. So finally, what's your lineup and score predictions for the game?
I say it's stubborn because Arteta's very stubborn with his picks, and there's been a lot of discussion on our channel about whether if Willian starts, a lot of people are like, "No, I'm done now. I'm fed up with Willian being picked." But it could still happen, even though he's doing absolutely nothing. But I'll go with Leno, obviously, and go. He's crucial. If he doesn't start, Runnison does, and Runnison is not a good keeper.
I've seen in one game, but yeah. I mean, he had an absolute
really
howler. Yeah.
Really, really bad. So then it'll be Bellerin and Holding. And it's a big question about left centre back because, as I said, Gabriel comes back, but Pablo Maria has been really good in the games that he's played. He's kept three clean sheets now in the 4 games that he's played. So really good from the Spaniard. You got Tierney obviously going to play at left back. Partey expect to be back and playing alongside Granit Xhaka with Emile Smith Rowe in front of them. Then a front 3 most likely of Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Saka. So it sounds great when I say it. But you guys seemingly have our number quite a lot, so I'm not massively confident, to be honest.
Are you not? Well, no. we have in the past. I'll be honest. I've been looking at the results and just thinking about it. I can't really remember. It's not the same as it was when we first got promoted, where you guys would beat us week in, week out, every time we basically played. But recently, that has changed on the Hodgson. But this season, Tom, I'm telling you, against the top 6, well, I said top 6. I'm laughing because well, against the bigger clubs, and Arsenal are still a top 6 club. I'm just joking about. We have actually got results, but this season's not the same. Palace are not the same. We've changed the system, and Zaha has been scoring. But apart from that, I mean, last game against Wolves, yes, it was an FA Cup game, and there were changes. But even when Zaha came on the pitch, even when Eze was on the pitch, we didn't have a single shot on target. A single shot. Like, there is something about Palace this season which I feel like the players have had enough as well. So I'm not confident going into this game. Yes, you might have been struggling, but I'm going for a score prediction of at least 2-0 to Arsenal. I think we're going to struggle massively. But what's your score prediction?
My head's saying 2-2 because I just think that we'll concede. And even though you're talking about that kind of form, I mean, the last 2 games I went to at Selhurst Park, we lost 3-0, which I'm sure you remember very fondly.
I remember that.
and the 2-2 with Xhaka scoring and Zaha winning the penalty late in the second half. So I think it was 2-2. There's just something about you guys that you just every time we play you recently, we just struggle. My head's saying 2-2, but I'm always the optimist. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win and hope that your prediction about you being a bit toothless up front is true. So, yeah.
This is all a trick because I'm trying to do reverse psychology here. So, hopefully, all this bad...
Yeah, I'm not the manager, so...
So, hopefully, it's going to work. Well, previously at the start of the season, I was predicting 1-1 draws, and we started to get wins. So I need to try something new. So I'm predicting us to go 2-0 defeats from now on, and hopefully we get the wins. But thank you for joining me, Tom. Make sure to check out the Gooner Talk TV. The link will be in the description down below. Arsenal fan, you do lots of things. I know, tactical breakdowns and lots of other content. So make sure to check out Tom's channel. And until next time, up the Palace.